It's me. Hi, Deirdre Virvo here. Thanks for joining us on Let's Talk Seniors, Memory Care Issues, Alzheimer's, Dementia, and Parkinson's. As many of you know, we started a home called Just Like Home, Dogwood Home, in the Shelton area for 6 seniors that are in need of assisted living or memory care. It's a gorgeous residential home in a beautiful neighborhood, just like home. So it's a home for 6 people, and we have round-the-clock staff and one caregiver to every 3 seniors. So it is a beautiful, beautiful facility, and we'd love you to come see it. Tonight, we have a wonderful guest on, and her name is Jennifer Labrie. She is here with us today. She works as a regional coordinator with the Alzheimers Association in Connecticut, and she's been doing that for more than 10 years. Well, she's been working with seniors and the Alzheimer community for about 25 years, but she'll tell you all about that. So she assesses the needs of people diagnosed with Alzheimer's and related dementias. She coordinates services, educates family, and she's an advocate on their behalf. Jennifer's a person you're going to want to get to know. She's here to give us insight into the differences between dementia and Alzheimer's, what you need to look for, what it means, and what kind of things you could do for your loved one if they are showing signs. So without further ado, we are going to introduce Miss Jennifer.
Hi, how are you? I'm Jennifer Labrie. I'm regional coordinator for the Alzheimer's Association, as Deirdre mentioned. This is what I have done lifelong, so I'm happy to bring you what I know, answer questions, provide information, whatever might be helpful to you. So Deirdre, if you would like, you want me to just start with some information and
first,
whatever you like.
Why don't you tell people just a little bit about yourself, how you got into this and your background and where you live now, and just a little bit about yourself personally.
Sure. So I live up here in the Northwest Hills of Connecticut. I'm from Barkhamsted. I grew up in West Hartford, Central Connecticut, and that's where I really began working with and living with seniors, and my passion really grew from there. We built our house out here in Barkhamsted, which actually gave me a good opportunity to go back to Northwest Community College up here and get my therapeutic recreation certification. And so I got to play and do activities and fun things with people with Alzheimer's for 10 years in the beginning of my career. And then at the same time, I was volunteering for the Alzheimer's Association. I volunteered as a walk captain. I co-chaired the Hartford Walk with someone. The Walk to End Alzheimer's is our largest fundraiser, and we fund research and programs, and that's how we can support the community and provide support groups and education. So from volunteering with the association, that's what led me to work for them. And I was lucky enough to be the helpline director for about 10 years for the association. I took a little break and helped Hartford Healthcare open their Center for Healthy Aging up here in Torrington, which also provides services for seniors. But I missed greatly the Alzheimer's Association and working very focused on dementia and Alzheimer's and providing support and care. I live up here with 2 children, also teenagers going through high school. So this time of COVID is challenging for both seniors and kids. So I'm trying to balance it all, but we're doing well and making the best of it.
And for the people in between, the seniors and the kids.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so right now, are you working with a lot of seniors that are at home with Alzheimer's, or?
Yeah, so throughout this, what we tried to do, things changed a little bit for us because usually we're providing education and support groups out in the community in different places like community centers and various places in towns. So things changed for us greatly when COVID hit, and we had to learn quickly a few different virtual platforms like this. So we're still providing all of our education programs, workshops, live, some are recorded. A lot of folks are signing on for our support groups. We're helping a lot of caregivers who are at home because adult day centers closed and different places in the beginning, like home care agencies, weren't quite sure what was safe, what was not. So all of us, were kind of thrown for a loop in the beginning. So a lot of support to caregivers, helping them figure out what the day looks like at home 24/7 when there wasn't that break, there wasn't that respite. So, and also working with a lot of folks who had loved ones in nursing homes and assisted livings and what that visit looked like or what that absence of a visit looked like and how to get through that time. So different times.
It's a very, very, very tough time for a lot. Very tough time. So I know that you were going to give us some insight between dementia and Alzheimer's and what is first, what do the different terms mean? And
Got it.
what is like, is there early detection? Like if you're, we all get a little forgetful as we're older.
Mhm.
What determines what is Alzheimer's or dementia?
Gotcha. And so I have to say, this is a question that 10 years on Helpline, and I still help on our helpline. This is a question that very often comes out and people ask, well, what's the difference? Because my doctor just said I have dementia, or I was diagnosed with just general dementia. So I have my notes in front of me because I always want to make sure I'm using terms correctly and don't forget anything to tell you. So if you think of dementia is like a general term that we use, right? And it's a term that we use to describe decline in mental and cognitive ability. So Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, right? So Alzheimer's itself is a specific disease. Dementia is not. Dementia is a grouping of symptoms. So a doctor once used this example, and I love it because it makes sense to me, and hopefully it helps with a little understanding for folks listening. But if you think of dementia as a fever, right? A fever itself is not an illness. Something is causing the fever. So, in the times that we're living, is it a flu that's causing a fever? Is it strep throat that's causing a fever? Is it something due to COVID that's causing a fever? Is it an infection, urinary tract infection, pneumonia, infection in the lungs? All of those things are causes of a fever, as Alzheimer's and different diseases are causes of dementia symptoms, if that makes sense, right? So if we think about dementia, right, Alzheimer's is not the only type of dementia. There are different types of dementia out there, and all of it has to do with what part of the brain in particular is being affected, what part of the brain is being damaged by something that's happening to the brain cells. So Alzheimer's disease, for example, what's happening are the plaques and tangles are building up in the brain, inside and outside of brain cells. And where that generally occurs first is in the central part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is responsible for thinking and memory and learning new information, right? So if the hippocampus is being affected by these plaques and tangles and it's damaging brain cells in the hippocampus, there's nowhere for new information that's learned to be processed and then stored back out into other parts of the brain that are still functioning well and not damaged. So, for example, if someone with Alzheimer's type dementia goes to the doctor at 9 o'clock in the morning, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, someone asks them, oh, how did your doctor's appointment go this morning? What did they tell you? They may look at you blankly. They may not remember they had an appointment at 9 o'clock that morning, and they may not have all of that information in their brain that was told to them because that was new information that they learned that morning, and there was nowhere for that information to be processed to then be stored out in long-term memory. So if there's
when people talk about short-term memory,
yes,
it's actually new information.
Exactly. So short-term memory, new information, something newly learned. When people have difficulty with recalling short-term memory, that's typically one of the first symptoms of dementia that you see in an Alzheimer's patient. Does that make sense?
Sure. If you catch it early, there's something you could do to stop the progression?
So what I would say is if you see signs in a loved one or in yourself, right, what you want to make sure is that it is not attributed to something else. So we'll talk about a couple of signs or symptoms, let's say. Not only problems with short-term memory or remembering things that are newly learned, but keeping track of something like balancing your checkbook. If you were always able to balance your checkbook and good with math skills and we're on it, if this is a change to what you normally could do, that could be an indication that it's a symptom or sign of dementia, right? Planning, preparing meals, making plans, getting disoriented or lost in places when you're driving outside of your normal area or even within your normal area. All of those things can be signs and symptoms of dementia. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's Alzheimer's, or it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a disease that's causing the dementia. It can be something that's reversible. What I want to make sure I'm clear is that Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, Parkinson's, those types of diseases that cause dementia are not reversible. But different things can cause dementia symptoms like vitamin deficiencies, thyroid that's not regulated, if you have thyroid hyper or hypo. Depression can cause dementia symptoms. Different infections or medical conditions that are not treated can cause dementia symptoms. Those are reversible dementias. So if depression is treated, if your thyroid is regulated correctly, if a medication that you newly have been put on and is causing you to be confused or disoriented, if that medication is changed, those symptoms of dementia may get better or be alleviated. So what's very important is that if you start to see signs and symptoms, start with your doctor that you're most comfortable with, whether it's your general practitioner or your internist or a physician you're comfortable with, talking about these changes that you're seeing in yourself, right? Things that are affecting your daily activity, your normal functioning. Talk with them about the changes and signs and symptoms that you see. And from there, let them evaluate what your medical conditions are, and make sure that through blood work and different exams that, there's nothing medical that could be treated or depression that could be treated. From there, what you want to do is probably see a specialist, whether it's a neurologist who specializes in diseases of the brain and nervous system, whether it's a psychiatrist that can help you with depression or other things with the way your mind is working, psychologists or geriatricians who also treat people who are older and also help with Alzheimer's disease. So I think it's important to start somewhere, because the earlier we can catch it, we can treat something that may be reversible. And if it is a disease like Alzheimer's disease, let's see what we can do to help support you. Are there treatments and medications out there that can help with the symptoms you're experiencing? Are there different research clinical trials that you can get involved in? There's so much happening right now with clinical trials and treatments that are in these studies that you can participate in, that they're looking for early stage participants. So it really can open doors for you with early detection.
This is great info, but let me ask you a question, because you said if you detect something like medical, it could be reversible. If you do not detect something medical, is it irreversible?
So if it's not something medical, and I'm talking about, again, things like vitamin deficiency or even brain tumors. Sometimes there could be something that's in the brain, sitting on a certain part of your brain that's affecting your functioning. So, what can they do to treat that? If it's not something that's reversible, and through blood tests, through MRI or PET scan, through psychiatric evaluation, there should be a battery of tests that are happening. We don't want just one memory, 20 questions, test my memory in 10 minutes and this is what I have. You want to make sure that we're covering everything, because what they're doing to try to come within about a 90 to 95% accurate diagnosis of Alzheimer's or vascular dementia or a different type of dementia that's not reversible is they're trying to rule everything else out that could possibly be treated. And without autopsy for Alzheimer's, it can't be diagnosed 100%, but they certainly can come very close, between 90 and 95% accuracy when diagnosing. And no, things like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, vascular dementia, things like that cannot be reversed.
So let's say, you have a vitamin deficiency or a thyroid issue, and it's not detected and it's showing up as like dementia signs. If it goes undetected for years, do you now have full-blown dementia and it's not reversible? Or once they treat your thyroid or vitamin, you could go back to regular?
So I guess that would depend on the length of time and the severity of the deficiency and what damage has been caused in the brain because of that being untreated for so long. So I don't know that I can necessarily answer yes or no that it would indefinitely turn or, for sure turn into an irreversible dementia. But, anything, left untreated, going for so long, causing damage to your body or your brain can often result in being something that's irreversible.
So this is very interesting, because my girlfriend had such an interesting situation, which I just thought was a miracle with her father. Now I realize it was a reversible something or other. He had a stroke. He was working full time as an accountant, 82, had a stroke, and was so like instant dementia and couldn't function. And he was like in a nursing home for quite a while. And then, I don't know, like a year. And then he wanted to come back to his house. And my girlfriend said, if you could get yourself back, because, he wasn't capable, and he figured out how to get himself back and got help and all, whatever the drug he was on caused him like to have dementia. And then whenever he changed the drug, he was kind of back to his regular self and just died. Right. Actually, 4th of July, it was 90. It was another 8 years, he lived fine. So for years, he looked like he went like that, like had a stroke, and then just had instant dementia. So
very important. And we tell caregivers this all the time. So my advice to her would be, in any situation like that, especially now, given the fact that he was so greatly affected by that one type of medication, whenever anyone, not even specific to dementia or Alzheimer's, but as we age, our bodies react very differently to medications. And so I would keep a journal for yourself, or if you're a caregiver, keep a journal for the person you're caring for. Write down medications, write down pros and cons, goods and bads that you see in this person, how they're affected by this medication. Because very often, if you're put on something, we know how medications can make our body feel. It can also have effects on our brain that are not beneficial.
Well, but Jennifer, do you have to be a study on Alzheimer's and dementia? Why didn't the hospital figure that out? Why did my friend have to figure that out? I'm just so you're your own advocate, but it seems a little crazy that.
So that's where we want to be their best advocate, because we know them best, right? We know our dads or our moms or our person we're caring for best. And when they're in the hospital or they're being treated by the doctor, they see such a quick snapshot of the person. So unfortunately, sometimes in healthcare, people are quick to jump that, well, he's 89 or 90 at the time, and yep, he had a stroke, so this is probably dementia. So maybe they didn't look further or know that he wasn't this way before he came in. So the dementia medication may not have, or whatever medication he was looked on, may not have been what they looked at first, and they didn't realize this was a big change to him. So, she was probably his best advocate to say, listen, this is not my dad. And, they put him on this medication. We need to look at this and reevaluate.
Yeah, that's craziness. That's crazy. So there are other forms of Alzheimer's, right?
Other forms of dementia.
Dementia.
Correct.
And it's important to know which one, to know how to treat it.
Well, it is, because if we look at just Alzheimer's disease itself, Alzheimer's disease it's the number one cause of dementia, and it attributes for 60 to 80% of the dementia cases that are diagnosed. But vascular dementia comes in second. So vascular dementia is when there's blood vessels affected and blood and oxygen levels affected that are getting to the brain, possibly caused by something like a stroke or cardiovascular issues. So some people can have a mixed dementia diagnosis because they may have Alzheimer's and then have had a stroke. So it's vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease at the same time. So there's mixed dementia. There are things like Lewy bodies, frontal temporal dementia. Again, it's all dependent on what part of the brain we're seeing damage to and what we're seeing on the outside. So is movement affected, attributed to things like Parkinson's, movement, rigidity, things like that. Are behaviors an extreme issue? Is someone having hallucinations or paranoia extreme? Is it more an Alzheimer's type where short-term memory is affected first? So there's different types of dementia, and it is important because certain medications may work adversely in someone who may have Lewy bodies and is being treated with an Alzheimer's type medication. So, we want to make sure that we are doing the best we can to diagnose as close as possible, simply so that we treat the person with the best possible medications that we have and other treatments and interventions.
And Jennifer, besides medication for people that have Lewy bodies or different forms of dementia or vascular, I wrote down cardiovascular. I'm taking notes as you're talking. Is it things that we could do with art and music therapy, different forms of the brain, or is it just medicine that we should be concerned about?
No, absolutely. So there's a study that came out of our national research conference, the AAIC, this July, a study that's been long before that, but new information has come out during it, but lifestyle interventions. So, the better we can take care of ourselves, the better and more healthy we can eat and take care of our body and get cardiovascular exercise, the more we can stimulate brain cells, even in a person with dementia. So the more active we can keep them, the better nutrition they can have, and the more socialization, right, which is a term during COVID that's very hard to talk about, I think, because there's so much social isolation. I don't like that. I like the physical distancing better than social distancing. So doing things like art therapy, just like you mentioned, we may not be able to be in person, but we do a program for early stage folks through the Mattituck Museum in Waterbury, and we do virtual museum tours with a docent who's talking about paintings and different artists and asking about the color that pops, and it's amazing. And we have one of our programs too is a musical bingo. So it's not necessarily your traditional in-person bingo game, but it's themed on music. Is it 50s music? Is it Elvis? Is it country music? What's the particular music theme of that week? And we do a music bingo program.
What do you do music bingo? You just put music on, you play bingo?
So there's a man who does it for us, and he's got it. It's so well done, and it plays music as people, and he plays it for a certain amount of time, like 30 seconds or 60 seconds, of people sing. And if it's on the bingo card, great. But even music at home, I had a gentleman who I worked with whose wife and he were from Germany, and every day, at the later part of the day, she had what was called sundowning and had a little more difficult of a time during the afternoons, and he would put on German music for them to listen to, and it just changed mood, and it brought her back to a place where she was more safe, she felt, and more connected to something. So, socialization and activity and stimulating brain cells, no matter what, I think is key, coupled with nutrition and exercise.
Now, I've read a lot about learning new things, like for instance, taking French if you didn't speak French, doing crossword puzzles, learning new words. Is this helpful to keep, when you were talking about it's hard to learn new things, is that going to help at all to try to learn them, or?
Right. Everything, you can trial and error, right? There are some people that working in assisted living, working with dementia patients, and working in our early stage groups in Southington when we were holding them. We brought in an art therapist someone who never picked up a paintbrush or never did art before in her life, absolutely loved it and continued doing it. Photography, it's, people pick it up and you just don't know. So I think trial and error, but try everything. I think for us, especially beforehand, my mom said, "Oh, I just Sudoku. I'm fine. I'm not going to get it." And I said, "Well, no, Mom, it can't just be Sudoku day after day. You have to challenge different parts of your brain." So, if you're doing something like that, that's using numbers, maybe try something physical next time. People take up ballroom dancing, and so you have to, think of coordination and use that part of your brain for coordination and movement and dance. And you're also hearing the music, and, so trying to stimulate different parts of our brain, using different areas of our brain, keeping active, keeping stimulated, I think is key.
And Jennifer, are different people predisposed to getting, like if it's in your family, is it hereditary?
Mm-hmm. So, we see that it does run in families. I think if it's, the majority of people, diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease are 65 and over. So we know the greatest risk factor is increasing age. That being said, I just want to make sure, reiterate, Alzheimer's and dementia are not a normal part of aging. Not everybody who is over 65 is going to get dementia or Alzheimer's. But we do see it as age increases, risk increases. However, there are a number of people, about 200,000 people in America, that do have young onset Alzheimer's, and that means they're diagnosed before 65. In research and studies, it's shown that there is a stronger link in familial connection when there's someone diagnosed or a family diagnosed with young onset. But I encourage anybody to go to our page, the research page that we have on our website, alz.org. There is so much information about genetics and about predisposition to Alzheimer's, and information on there for more.
So it sounds like kind of like juvenile diabetes, which is hereditary, but adult onset is definitely, a lifestyle kind of thing.
Right.
So saying like young onset could be hereditary.
Right. And I think just like with anything, Alzheimer's, if heart disease, if diabetes, if cholesterol runs in your family, if breast cancer runs in your family, you're going to monitor, and you're going to monitor yourself. You're going to go to the doctor. You're going to keep checking in if you find changes or feel changes. Just like with any other disease, there's a higher risk that it runs in your family. So you want to keep monitoring yourself and keep checking.
So can you monitor for Alzheimer's?
Well, what I would do, keep track of, do you experience changes in your cognitive functioning? Anything that's different from what your normal abilities are, what your normal functioning is? Do family and friends notice changes in you, or signs in you? If there are things that are coming to your attention, obviously people will call our helpline and we talk about that. And, it's scary. It's scary to say the words that you may have dementia or Alzheimer's, because it makes it real. But if you're feeling things, if you feel changes from what your normal is, even in personality and behaviors and relationships, if there's a drastic difference or a big difference in what your normal is, then there's something attributed to that. There's something causing that. So,
You know what, Jennifer, I am always getting lost, but that is nothing new.
exactly.
So I don't think I'm worried. But I have a friend who's very concerned, because she's in her 60s now, that she has trouble with facial recognition. Is that an Alzheimer's thing? Like, she can't remember anybody's name, and she might have met the person like not long ago, and she does not recall their face at all.
Right. So we have to remember too, right? So as we age, our bodies age, our vision, glasses this year, our vision changes, our hearing changes, our skin elasticity changes, our brain changes, right? Our brain is aging just like our body is aging. So it is normal and typical that we would require more time to process information, a little longer to recall someone's name. We may need to put strategies in place, like repeating a person's name 3 times when we first meet them, putting that name to the face. It's important to remember that there are typical age-related changes that happen to our brain. The key is that with your friend, she's not able to recall someone's name, but does she recall it later? Or if someone says, oh, I didn't remember her name either, and gives her kind of a cue, or I think it starts with an A, and she gets the name. It's the ability to, eventually recall, or go to a strategy you've put in place to help you get through. Some people say, well, I can't remember what day it is. Well, let me tell you, during this COVID, our days are blending into weeks and weeks into months. I don't know what day it is sometimes, but we're able to recall, or we know where to go. Look at the newspaper, or look on our phones, or look at a calendar. We know what to kind of do to get ourselves out of that situation. It's really when you're waking up and, let's say she doesn't recognize a family member, and really has trouble with who they might be, or what their name is, or something a little more significant than that. But if she's able to recall a name after some time, or with some cueing, but again, if she was great with names all her life, and all of a sudden she's having a significant amount of trouble, that's something I would talk with the doctor about.
That's interesting. So she would go to a neurologist, or who do you start with?
I would start with her, who the doctor she's most comfortable with. So if she's got a primary care physician, or an internist, or someone, if she does have a neurologist, start there. And, they know her, then they'll know her medical history. And I would start there. But yeah, definitely specialists are available, and it just depends what the focus is, or what she needs most.
That is really neat. Now, what if you have a parent, because this is, I guess, more common, right? Your parent or loved one that you see is forgetting, they're not shutting off the stove, they're getting lost driving, and they really don't want to confront it, want to talk about it.
Right.
How do you start that conversation with them?
Sure. So a couple of things, pick someone who they connect with the best, or who they may take suggestion from or information from the best. And it doesn't always have to be focused on they're having a problem with their memory, because that tends to have people put on the brakes or really become defensive. Sometimes it's easier to focus on, something like, something more medical or physical. So, Mom, I noticed that you were having trouble with this. I'm wondering, like, if your vitamin B is okay. Like, I know, as we age, like our vitamin B deficiency can go, or our thyroid could change. So almost addressing it from like what could possibly be treated and reversible, what could be medical, and have that be your foot in the door with them or start that conversation. It depends on your relationship with the person too. So if you're close with your mom and you've always had these conversations, being comfortable to say, Mom, I'm concerned and do this for me, help me. I will go with you, but let's find out what's going on together so that we can make sure that you're the healthiest you can be.
That's a great idea, Jennifer, because I believe like what you're saying is, take it from like a medical standpoint, get them into a doctor somehow so you're not the one giving them news that it could be something non-medical, because I think it's very hard to approach people on anything mental.
Mm-hmm. There's a great part on our website, and it's how to start that conversation. And, forgive me, off the top of my head, I don't remember like the 10, suggestions or whatever it is in there, but there are great ideas, alz.org, under Alzheimer's and dementia, and like starting that conversation. There's great information on our website about that.
That is very good. Mm-hmm. So typically you would be going out talking about all these things and helping people in person, but now if people have challenges or questions, can they call the Alzheimer's Association, get answers?
Yeah. So what I would love for you to know is our helpline. It's, probably the best thing to start with. It's 1-800-272-3900. That's probably the number I should have given you to put up there. It's our 24/7 toll free.
1-800, what is it?
272-3900.
Great.
Good. And it's our 24/7 helpline. Perfect. And so that's available to anyone, day or night. It's staffed by social workers, nurses, clinicians, ready to take your call and answer questions. You can definitely contact us locally in Connecticut. They'll connect you if you request someone in Connecticut. We can schedule virtual care consultations where we can really talk about, what's the issue at hand, start to peel back those layers and figure out what direction for you to take, connect you with the right resources to help and support. So our helpline, our website, alz.org, there's a caregiver center on there, safety center, community resource finder, as well as our online recorded education programs. But you can also find there on our community resource finder our virtual education workshops and programs that we're holding now that we would usually hold in the community, as well as the support group information is there. That's also where you can find the research page and volunteer opportunities. People are still volunteering with us. There's opportunities not only as support group leaders and in our program department, but as an advocate in our public policy department, and our Walk to End Alzheimer's, which we hold every year. It's still going on this year in each area. I think the one closest to you guys, Shelton, would be Norwalk or New Haven, and an opportunity to participate in the walk, form a team. Just go on alz.org. What is it
happening? When's that happening, Jennifer? Is that soon? The walk?
Yes, they're coming up in October. Yes. So all of the dates for the walks are on our website. If you go on alz.org and just hit find a walk near me and put in your zip code, it will put it in there. But I encourage people, start a team. If you can fundraise this year, great. If not, just be a part of our walk. It helps support research and all of our wonderful free programs and support groups that we can provide.
That's beautiful. You're a wealth of information.
I hope I got it all right.
Oh my gosh. And I know you're speaking quickly to get it all out there, but so look for short-term memory. New information is hard to absorb, keeping track of things, hard to make plans, getting disoriented easily. These are the early signs. And if you see them, maybe look for things that could be medical, rule that out first, and then see if it is something that's non-medical related that you can maybe get some help for. What does the medicine do for people? How does it help?
So the medicines that are out there, medications are things like Aricept, Namenda, Exelon. the medications that are out there now, they don't reverse what's happening in the brain. They don't reverse the Alzheimer's itself, the plaques and tangles from forming necessarily, but they do help with the symptoms. So I'm going to give you an example that was told to me firsthand by one of our early stage group members. I had worked for many years with middle stage folks who weren't really able to tell me what it felt like differently on the medication. They were a little farther along in their Alzheimer's, but I had a woman who we were talking about medication. And I asked her what the difference made her feel. Like, how did she feel different on the medication? And she expressed that she still had bad days. There were still mornings where she didn't want to get out of bed. She was in a fog, confused. But on these medications, on things like Aricept or Namenda, she said what it helped to do was lift that fog. She was able to think more clearly, think through a process of something, whether it was making a meal, there was more clarity. She was still able to drive and she was following GPS. It made it easier for her to hear directions and follow directions. So medications help with the symptoms that a person would experience. It doesn't necessarily help reverse the actual disease and what the process is happening in the brain.
Got it. So, or does that mean medicine is necessary?
Not always. Some folks don't take medication for this. There are side effects. Some people experience GI side effects. I think it's a very personal decision. It's a personal decision to make with your doctor and weighing the pros and cons. If it's having more negative side effects on your body and on your cognitive functioning, then it's probably not beneficial for a person to be on that. But what other lifestyle modifications can we make? Are there certain things we can incorporate into our diet? Can we get more cardiovascular exercise, more socialization? Are there other things that can help lifestyle intervention wise?
And does it always progress?
Yes. So Alzheimer's disease is a progressive, irreversible disease. So symptoms usually start out gradually. I can't give you a definite time frame on how long someone can live with this. It is definitely a long journey for a person, especially caregivers. But people can live long with Alzheimer's depending on the time that they were diagnosed, the time of onset, what healthcare access is like, what other supports are in place.
But it's only going to get worse. It's not like you're just going to be level for it progresses.
Right. So with Alzheimer's, you'll see plateaus where a person stays the same for some period, but then you'll usually see a dip or a progression. If you see a sudden change, that's a very drastic change. It probably is not just the normal course of Alzheimer's. There might be a secondary thing happening. Very common in people with Alzheimer's is urinary tract infections because of hygiene and incontinence and things like that deteriorating as the disease progresses. So it is a gradual progression. There are some plateaus, but again, if you see a drastic dip or a drastic change, that's the time to call the doctor again too.
Yeah. I remember my dad was in the hospital when he was dying and he was, cognitively fine. He had heart issues. Anytime he did a urinary tract infection, he was like hallucinating and I was like, oh my God, I was like, so horrifying. And the next day he was back to being fine. I was like, oh my God. Right. It was scary. It was scary.
Anytime you see a big change, look for things like that or medications. Medications may be not taken correctly or missed or something like that. So
that's great. But thank you so much. I'd love you to come on again because I know you know so much. You could tell us, and you've just been a wealth of information. I know that you've shared so much with our audience. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Jennifer or Alzheimers.org, ALZ.org, it's much easier than spelling Alzheimer's out. 800-272-3900. And Jennifer is definitely saying, go for that walkathon, put your mask on, October, contribute. Carry on. It's outside. It's safe. We're all good. And I know that used to be your big, thing you volunteered in and that got you started. So
yes, and we're not doing them the same this year. Just so you know, they're not the same this year. We're not congregating, getting together as a big walk. People are walking separately, but on the same day. So we're encouraging people to walk with family and friends, but we won't have our big gathering that we usually have.
That's great. Well, families can walk together and just separately. That's cool. That's all good. That's the same concept, right?
You got it.
We have to alter things here. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know you're on your vacation, so thank you really for giving us your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Very much. Bye.
Bye. That was Jennifer of Alzheimer's organization. Wow, she is a wealth of information. There is so much to know. I think she was speaking quicker than I speak, just to get it all out there. But I really appreciated that. Great information, Jennifer. Thank you so much. And I hope she comes back soon. And everybody, thank you. I will see you next week on Let's Talk Seniors, Memory Care Issues here on Facebook Live. Bye for now. Hi, Deirdre here again. Thank you for joining me on Let's Talk Seniors, Memory Care Issues. Is this an issue hitting home? Do you have a parent or loved one with memory care issues who you feel is not safe at home anymore? Are isolation, falls, and safety issues becoming a big concern? Welcome to Dogwood Senior Home, premier boutique residential senior living specializing in memory care. It's country living at its best in the Huntington section of Shelton, Connecticut. We're truly a home with only 6 senior residents living as one family unit. Senior residential homes are concepts sweeping the nation with 47,000 across the U.S. We're pleased to open Dogwood Senior Home as it will be only number 6 for Connecticut. Brand new, sparkling clean, opening mid-June. And safe. We are COVID-free. Residential care homes boast a very low COVID infection rate across the nation. This is due to the intimacy of size and speed in which the caretakers can shift to accommodate immediate needs. They are much safer than the large homes and facilities, as you can imagine. It has been documented that residents have less falls and a better quality of life in a residential home environment. Our home is more affordable than the big box facility. You pay one all-inclusive price, and that price is guaranteed for the life of the resident. With an incredible 1-to-3 caregiver ratio, which you won't find anywhere else. Our friendly, loving caregivers are dedicated and trained in Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's issues. We're only taking 6 residents, so the home will fill up fast. Call me at 203-689-7562 for a talk and tour. I would love to meet you and your loved one. See you soon.